Welcome to the Cold Case Christianity broadcast, the only Christian case-making program hosted by a cold case homicide detective. J. Warner Wallace has been investigating cold case murders in Los Angeles County for over a decade. His work has been featured on Fox News, Court TV, and Dateline. For more information about Jim's work and the case for Christianity, please visit coldcasechristianity.com. Now, here's your host, J. Warner Wallace.
Thanks for joining me once again here at Cold Case Christianity. I'm J. Warner Wallace. Now today we're going to talk about really an evidence for God's existence that some folks are kind of overlooked. They take it for granted. And many of us in the church who maybe haven't thought deeply about whether or not there are these kinds of evidences for the existence of God might overlook this altogether. And that is that objective, transcendent moral truths are best explained by God's existence. In other words, there are a number of objective, transcendent moral principles that we take for granted that we employ every day. And we sometimes think that we created these for ourselves, or they've emerged some other way, without realizing that, in fact, the best explanation for such objective, transcendent moral truths is in the foundation, the existence of a transcendent, objective moral truth giver, which, of course, would be God. Now, the first step in even trying to understand this or trying to explain this to anybody or trying to even assess it for ourselves is to really first ask the question, are there really objective, transcendent moral truths? Now, I will tell you that I've talked about it here on this broadcast in the past. The vast majority of people in our culture really struggle with this, and the church is not much better. About, I think, 22%, as with the last poll that Barna did, of the culture, the adult population, actually believe that objective, transcendent moral truths exist at all. And the church isn't a lot better. About 34% of adults believe in the existence of objective, transcendent moral truths. And that's because in our common experience of dealing with moral issues, we sometimes will kind of struggle to see that these kinds of transcendent truths exist, especially when it seems like different situations call for different kinds of responses. You might say, well, it's never okay to kill, but really, there are a couple of exceptions here in California to the homicide law, to the murder law rather, that make these justifiable homicides. If you use whatever force necessary to stop someone who's trying to take your life, an attack, a deadly attack on your life, you can use whatever force is necessary to resist that attack, including deadly force. You won't be charged with the murder. You'll only be charged, well, it's no charge at all. It's a justifiable homicide. Same is true, for example, if you were trying to protect the life of an innocent child. You could use whatever force is necessary, including deadly force, to accomplish such a thing. So you see, there do seem to be certain situations in which what we would commonly think of as objective, transcendent moral principles, like you should never kill anybody, seem to be, well, maybe not, maybe so, maybe not, depends on the situation. Could you say that it's never okay to lie? Well, Rahab lied, and she's in Hebrews 11 as a hero of the faith. Why? Because she lied to protect the lives of two innocents in her house. It seems that even as Christians, we are kind of fuzzy on whether or not there are objective, transcendent moral principles. But the reality, of course, is we can discover these and we can see the foundation of objective truth, objective moral truth, by simply adding an expression to the moral act we're assessing. And that expression is for the mere fun of it. In other words, is it ever okay to kill for the fun of it? Well, no. Is it okay to lie just for the fun of it? No, you might find some justification. But you certainly could never say it's okay to lie for the fun of it. Is it okay to steal for the fun of it? Well, no. These are objective, transcendent moral principles that every culture has upheld. Every culture has made a part of their fabric, of their culture. And I don't care where you are in history, where you are on the planet, what race you might be, what cultural, social group you might be part of. Nobody thinks, nobody has ever thought, nobody ever will think it's okay, it's morally acceptable to kill someone for the fun of it, to torture babies for fun. I mean, if someone is going to tell you that these things are, they really can't affirm these as objective, transcendent, of course we always supersize it. Hey, if you're denying that there are such things as objective moral principles, transcendent moral principles, wouldn't you agree that torturing babies for the fun of it is wrong? Objectively, transcendently, inherently, there's no way you can justify such a thing. And if people, I've actually had this conversation where people will say, well, I would never want to do it. I would never teach others to do it, but I cannot say with certainty, I cannot say as a matter of judgment that this is objectively transcendently wrong. Really? You can't say that it's objectively transcendently wrong to torture babies for fun? I'll tell you what, we got bigger issues than whether or not we should talk about God's existence and make the case for God's existence through objective moral issues if you don't even believe that torturing babies for fun is a no-no. So I think that this is the kind of thing that we can demonstrate just by these are really so plainly true. These kinds of principles are so plainly true that we really shouldn't have to make a strong case for these kinds of objective transcendent moral principles. And I think that those who try to deny these kinds of things, try to deny these kinds of truths, are really stretching credulity, right? They're really stretching their imagination, really for the sake of denying the source of such moral truths. Because here's the problem. I think when you look at all the alternatives that are typically offered to explain the existence of transcendent, objective moral truths, they all fail. Unless, of course, these kinds of truths are grounded in the nature of God. Not that God proclaims these willy-nilly, not that these exist and God simply affirms them so they somehow precede God. No, that moral truths, objective moral truths, are grounded in the very nature of God. If God exists, you have these truths. They come together. They are basically come hand in hand. So we're going to take a look after the break at a few alternatives. How might I explain the existence? Because there are lots of atheists who actually do believe in objective, transcendent moral truth, but they try to ground it in some other way. Let's take a look at those ways after the break.
Connect with Cold Case Christianity on social media. Visit the Cold Case Christianity homepage and click the social media icons on the top right toolbar. Jim is active on Facebook and Twitter, posting the best apologetics articles from over 250 Christian blogs around the country. You'll also find links to Jim's Instagram, Pinterest, and Google Plus accounts, along with the link to the Cold Case Christianity YouTube page. Stay connected with Cold Case Christianity and become a better Christian casemaker.
Now, there are lots of folks out there who would actually agree that there are objective, transcendent moral principles. In other words, it's never okay to torture babies for the fun of it. That's one such objective, transcendent principle. But they would try to ground these, try to root these, try to explain these through some of their fashion, some of their way, rather than in the existence of a transcendent, objective, moral truth giver. So, for example, one approach that's commonly taken is to say, well, these are somehow grounded in your genetic evolution. They're part of your DNA. The DNA that has evolved to a place where those people who happen to employ these kinds of behaviors have a tendency to exist, to survive better, and as a result, they pass this kind of genetic behavioral material onto their descendants. And so now we have a group that accepts certain objective, transcendent moral principles based on their genetic evolution, which was shaped and guided by natural selection. They survive better in social groups. Therefore, we all recognize these principles, really not because they are some objective giver of principles, but because we all are experiencing them through our genetic evolution. It's in our DNA. Well, if that's the case, I could see some serious problems with how we might interact with one another. And the first one is that I think that this view empowers relativism. This view empowers relativism. And here's what I mean. Each one of us has got a different genetic pathway. I mean, we could argue that look, if genetics are what get us to accepting or believing in certain objective moral principles, or certain principles at all, how could you judge another group whose genetic pathway is different than yours? I mean, look, all of us have a different genetic lineage, a different genetic heritage. Why would you say that your genetic pathway that got you to today is somehow superior to mine? This is the problem with this, is that it would really, this means that since DNA resides in individuals and not in cultures, and we all share the same DNA, we all have different DNA based on the subject who holds this DNA. If this is the case and your moral views are grounded in your DNA, then your moral views are also grounded in you as the subject, which means all moral truth is subjective. Well, the folks who want to claim that DNA is a source for what we would call objective moral truths, They deny subjectivity. They believe these truths transcend subjects. They are bigger than all of us. But of course, if they're in our DNA, we can never argue, because look, I've met lots of folks in my career who have a different view, a different moral view than I do. And if they're going to say, hey, my moral view is grounded in my genetic heritage, just like yours is grounded in yours, then I get to decide what's morally right based on my genetic lineage. You get to decide what's morally right based on yours. So the first problem is, of course, that this view empowers relativism. But there's another problem with this view, and that this view also liberates us from any responsibility. Because think about that. How in the world could I feel good about accusing somebody, or judging somebody, or arresting somebody for any behavior, when in fact they could say, well, look, I didn't have a choice in this, any more than my genetic heritage gave you my eye color. It determined how soon I would go gray, probably. It determined, lots of things about me, whether I have an earlobe or one that's attached to my, all the different nuances of genetic differences between one individual and another. If that is what is the source for objective moral beliefs, not objective, but moral beliefs, they would be subjective in this case. Well, then we got a problem, right? Because you can't accuse me of my hair color. You can't accuse me of my eye color. You can't accuse me of some feature of my anatomy. And if that's the case, of course, you can't accuse me, because these are not my choices. These are grounded in my DNA. Well, if my moral choices are also grounded in my DNA, how in the world could you accuse me of wrongdoing? And the last thing I think that the problem with this view is that this view assumes a common encoder. And here's what I mean by that. A great book out there by Stephen C. Meyer, who's also an endorser on my next book coming out on August 1st, God's Crime Scene. A shameless plug I just threw out to you guys. But Stephen C. Meyer, I think, is one of the most important apologists right now on the planet, because with his background in philosophy of science from Cambridge, Stephen is just, I think he's perfectly positioned to be able to think clearly and to communicate clearly the problems with scientism, this view that everything can be determined by applying science. Well, Stephen has written a book called Signature in the Cell, in which he talks about, well, look, if DNA is information, and we know this is information, we've made a case for why DNA is information. Maybe I'll do that on a future show. But not only is DNA information, it's the highest level of information. It communicates ideas. DNA molecules communicate marching orders to proteins, expecting the proteins to respond in a certain way, and sure enough, those proteins actually do. It is the highest level of information, and the problem, of course, with any source of information is that you cannot find a single example in the history of the entire universe in which information comes from anything other than intelligence. If your moral truths, the moral principles that you hold, are grounded in your DNA, then they're grounded in encoded DNA, which has to come from an intelligent source. This might explain why we have objective transcendent. Even if you believed that it's in your DNA, you'd have to accept that there's a common, objective, transcendent genetic encoder that creates DNA shared by all of us that produces these emerging moral principles. You'd be stuck with the same problem that you had before, which is to find what is the objective transcendent DNA encoder that creates such moral truth in the first place. And that's the bigger, to me, the bigger problem is that all information comes from intelligent sources. So to say that DNA is the source of this does not get you off the hook in terms of explaining how it is we have objective transcendent moral principles. Take a quick break. We'll come back and take another view, another look at how we might explain such moral truth.